Okay, it's time, it's the big one. D3 up in here, Acorn Cinema, round whatever. Now, I don't want to spoil anything for you, so without giving away how I feel about this game, we're gonna have a phrase of the day. And our phrase of the day is, fuck you, Blizzard. Anyone who understands what I just said has played Diablo 3. Actually, played is a strong word. Installed-ish, I should say. And unfortunately, that's where the real challenge ramps up. The motherfucking installer. Ugh. Strap in, folks. It's gonna be a long night. Starting 9 or so years ago, with the dawn of World of Warcraft, Blizzard introduced the Blizzard Launcher. Its purpose was to download, install, and update the game all from one simple-to-use app. Was being the key word here, which brings us back to the phrase of the day. Fuck you, Blizzard! 9 years ago, this shit didn't work. 9 years later, worse maybe? Let's go with worse. While my brief on-off relationship with WoW in its first year or so introduced me to this beast, we weren't really reacquainted until StarCraft 2. Now, I loved the first StarCraft. I played OG Warcraft, Warcraft 2, and especially StarCraft throughout high school. That shit was my jam! So waiting 12 years for a sequel, you could imagine I was primed. Yeah, StarCraft 2, let's do this! And then, yeah, I bought StarCraft 2 on day 1. And then got to play it 6 months later. 6 months! Because that's how long it took to get the motherfucker to work. And that's not just for Windows, that's for either Windows or OS X. Firstly, you have to install the launcher with a separate installer. Yeah, you heard me right. You need an installer for the installer. And said installer doesn't work. Once you're past that, the launcher doesn't work. Once you're past that, you get to the game, which doesn't work. Say it with me, folks. Fuck you, Blizzard. So this time around, after nearly a week of hair pulling, I had what was in theory Diablo 3 on my computer. Only it wasn't. Even if you wanted to play single player, you're forced to wait for an open server to play on. Within hours, Error 37 mock vids became a cottage meme industry.
Computer, yep.
This has happened before and since with a number of mainstream titles, most notably SimCity. Outside of MMOs, this whole online-only thing doesn't work. So I pay $60 for an empty box of aggravation. Which brings me to something that many of you never thought would see the light of day. Golden rule number 2. If my NES can do it, so can you. Here's how it works. If I buy a game and put it into whatever it is that's required to play it on, and I have electricity, then BAM! Motherfucker get played!
Hey, don't hate the player, hate the game.
My 8-bit NES that I got in 1987 can still to this day accomplish this feat.
Awesome! Intense!
Just as it could 26 years ago.
So old.
Diablo 3 cannot do this. The Atari 2600 can do this, but not Diablo 3. Your OG Game Boy can, and not so much Twat Muffin over here. I mean, after all this online-only nonsense, I can't imagine anyone dumb enough to...
Yeah.
Message!
Once I did manage to get online, I could barely play the damn thing. At launch, Diablo was compatible with the computers at Blizzard, and nowhere else. The game engine was hardly state-of-the-art, yet unless I underclocked my video card, it would repeatedly overheat and crash my GPU. Ugh! And it wasn't just me. Other people straight up lost their video cards and ended up with broke computers from this thing. It ended up being a fucking system breaker. As someone whose entire income is made from said CPU und GPU, that was kind of off-putting. I mean, imagine if you put Mario 3 in the box and all of a sudden your power is out and you can't get any work done. Your whole livelihood just fucked. I mean, that's some Homer Simpson shit. And it happens all the time now. Which brings us back to golden rule number 2. I mean, in the past 2 years alone, at least 2/3, I swear, 2/3 of PC releases that I have encountered have been broken at launch. And by broken, I mean unplayable, not glitchy. One of the last few games that I actually paid $60 for was Borderlands 2, which until 4 months after launch hard crashed my computer 5 minutes in. Playing a game shouldn't be akin to getting kicked in the crotch. As if all this wasn't enough, the dingleberry on top was when I came back to gather footage for this review, and my account had been hacked. And all my information at risk. Thanks, Blizzard. Thank you for that. Whatever, I'm sure it was just an isolated incident, right? Ugh. It doesn't help that Blizzard has the worst customer service since iOmega. Yeah, I'm that old. And apparently, so are you. Alright, I guess there's a game here, sort of, so let's review it. And not to sound too unbalanced, I'll start with the positive. The biggest overhaul here is the gameplay, which for a point-and-click fest is usually pretty straightforward. Diablo 3 has actually incorporated, of all things, gameplay from World of Warcraft, something that on paper I would never have supported. And yet it totally works. Instead of assigned letter keys for spells, you've got action bar moves where your potions used to be. The potions, much like your moves now, have cooldown times, reducing cheese and balance issues. Identifying items is mostly gone, and the mess of scrolls you used to have for town portals as well, with just a move a la Hearthstone left over. The quest system has been updated with a noticeable WoW vibe, and the skill tree that we're all way too attached to has been replaced with a skill rune system that allows for way more experimentation and gameplay variety that, again, I would never have supported on paper, but totally works better. Crafting has been added, and is way more fun than that stupid cube I had to lug around in the last game, and when they're working, the graphics aren't half bad. So, yeah, back to the negative. I say when they're working, because even though Diablo 3 comes 12 whole years after Diablo 2, it still has the same stuttering issue that 2 had. This is particularly perplexing because there's no way these two games are using the same engine. But they do use the same method, and that is loading the assets for the randomized maps as you play them. This constant CPU activity twerks the GPU and can leave you with stuttery gameplay, no matter how nice your system is. Diablo 2 had this problem to a lesser extent, but what is truly unforgivable is that Diablo 1, much like its 80s predecessor Angband, did not have this problem, simply because they loaded the whole area at once when you got there. I know some people were irritated by the load time in Diablo 1, but I'd rather wait 5 to 10 seconds to play a smooth level than instantly jump into a stutterfest.
The sanctity of this place has been fouled.
And this isn't just a graphical thing, it's a gameplay thing too. Heavy stutters can make you feel like the game is strobed. For all the unexpected improvements, there's one thing brought over from WoW that doesn't work at all, and that's the auction house. Since this isn't a WoW review, I won't get into why this is a good idea there, but it indeed works for Warcraft and many other MMOs. But this is not an MMO, and should not be treated as such. Here, sadly, all the auction house does is throw balance out the window, and make any achievements along the lines of finding things yourself moot. I mean, this is a loot game, really kind of the OG modern loot game. And yet, this house makes loot not matter anymore. Why would you do this, Blizzard? With a single stroke, you've ruined any weight finding something good might have, which is what made Diablo special. What's worse is, in some respects, of the 4 difficulties here, Normal, Nightmare, Hell, and Inferno, only Hell difficulty is really a game. I know that's confusing, let me explain. It used to be Normal, Nightmare, and Hell, and it wasn't until halfway through Normal that enemies really started becoming a threat. So you could see everything in the first 2 acts of Normal as practice, or tutorial, or whatever, leaving you with still 2.5 acts of real game. Not so much in Diablo 3. Now both Normal and Nightmare are so easy you could walk through blind and not die. It's tunnel running, akin to Final Fantasy XIII. Blizzard has done this to make the game more accessible, and to compensate, they've made a new mode, Inferno, which has such horribly balanced and overpowered elite enemies that it's more masochism than fun. And that's coming from a guy who played Vanquish on its hardest mode. What I'm saying is the only time you're really playing here is Hell mode, which takes like 15 to 20 hours just to get to per character. It's just so much wasted time. and not much of an incentive to make new characters. Where Diablo 2 was an expansion and reimagining of what was done in the previous game, Diablo 3 doesn't expand or reimagine shit. In fact, it's pretty much the same game, only updated to 3D, and all the legitimate improvements aren't enough to compensate for its inherent cracks and balance issues. The final stick in the eye, the one move that was seemingly optional that really got me, no Necromancer! That was my character. I killed Bale with him. That was my jam! And yet, here, gone. And, as if to spit in my eye in Act 2, you'll find one standing around in the desert, just there to give you the middle finger. Just in case I've depressed you too much, there is indeed a light at the end of this tunnel. And it's that this kind of isn't Diablo 3. What I mean by that is a game is the result of its development team, not its title. Here's an example. GoldenEye was a great game, but it was actually a trilogy, and in truth, its 2 sequels were even better. What? Say you? Well, the dev team that made GoldenEye lost the Bond license, so the sequel was called Perfect Dark, and then the next was Time Splitters 2. With each iteration, they expanded and improved on what they had done. Perfect Dark practically invented the modern challenge system, and Time Splitters 2 added, that's right, a level editor! And when I say level editor, I mean level editor, not level rearranger. The point I'm making here is that the dev team that made Diablo 1 and 2 didn't make 3, but they have been working on other stuff, namely BAM. And Torchlight doesn't need to be online, doesn't have an auction house, doesn't stutter, doesn't cost $60. Just in the same way that follow-up Bond or Perfect Dark games were Bond or Perfect Dark in name only, Diablo 3 is Diablo in name only. There could end up being a saving grace. At Sony's PS4 debut, Blizzard announced the console version of Diablo 3. Why should you care? Why should I care? First off, the last decade of Diablo clones has taught us that these kind of games actually work really well with a controller. And while I can't speak for the weaker PS3 360 versions that drop in September, the PS4 Xbox One editions will undoubtedly fix the stuttering issue. It's the difference between developing for a closed system instead of an open one. Also, Blizzard has announced no auction house, giving them the opening they need to fix the game's horrific balance issues. And the ultimate irony, local co-op. That's right. The franchise that reinvented online play will now release its definitive version for offline couch play. Alright, we've been here way too long, so here we go! Barbara Walters Award, 'cause she used to be a pioneer, a real trailblazer in her field. But now she's just a hack.
One of the things that I appreciate and always have, which it does show in this, is the relationship that you two have.
Ugh. I gotta start making these things fucking shorter.